Hello and welcome back to the basement. In this episode, I'm finally going to demo and play this 1973 Fender P bass that I've been restoring for the last 3 months. All right, so first and foremost, the reason for the delay in this particular video is, well, I've got issues with the paint already. Very obviously, I did not wait until this nitrocellulose lacquer hardened all the way. It takes 30 days. Apparently, I just don't have the patience for 30 days. I should have waited 30 days before I even started to wet sand it. So several different issues that, well, I just ignored because I wanted to get this thing over with. And as a result, after a couple of weeks of hanging on one of these guitar hangers, these have foam pads on them, and underneath that it's metal. So anyway, I picked up the guitar one evening to go and play it, and I noticed a crack in the finish on the headstock where it met said guitar hanger. And anyway, I poked it and a whole chunk just fell right off. So I was like, great, well, let me fix it. So I did my best to fix it. I can still do better. You can kind of see where it is. You can, well, I should say you can definitely see where it is right about there. It's not terrible. You certainly can't see it from a distance, but it's definitely there. So anyway, while I was looking at it and fixing it, I noticed, well, the finish is cracking pretty much everywhere. The reason being is, well, twofold. Number one, the wood got wet. Obviously it got wet when I was wet sanding it with water. And then, well, the paint wasn't fully hard when I started to wet sand. So these are definitely cracks from the paint shrinking, along with the wood shrinking and the paint shrinking at different paces. So a couple of things can contribute to that. Obviously, the water with the wet sanding, overdoing it certainly can cause the wood to swell and then contract. And then when it contracts, if the paint is hard, it's going to crack. Basically, these two things have to move at the same time, and they didn't. So it's not flaking off, it's not terrible. It's been over 30 days at this point, so it's hard at this point. It passes the fingernail test. But anyway, I digress. It is what it is. This is a vintage instrument, and well, before too long, it's going to look vintage. I'm pretty hard on my basses anyway. As you can tell, this is the first bass I did with a nitro finish. As you can see, there's all kind of dents and dings on it. This thing's about maybe 2-3 years removed from when I painted it. I think it's 2 years. Did in what, 2017? So yeah, it's coming up on 3 years. It'll be 3 years in February since I painted this. And it's, you know, it is what it is. Still love that bass. It's still one of my number ones. These two are my number one basses. But now I've got this thing up and running again. So without further ado, let's just play the darn thing and show you what it sounds like. Or let you listen to what it sounds like. All right, so there's some of my favorite bass tones that I can get out of this thing, put up into kind of one song. I was trying to do, play all the parts to that song and write drums and write guitar parts, and I just never get it quite right and get happy with it. So I just played it as I wrote it. That was the first kind of riff that I came up with after playing this bass for the first time after I restored it. So it's been a ton of fun playing this thing, aside from the issues with the paint. I'm just gonna let it be for right now. It's starting to get too cold for me to try and refinish it with nitro, so I'm gonna wait till the spring, see how bad it gets, and then kind of go from there. It's just one of those things. But the thing is, right now, it's playable again. It looks good enough that I want to pick it up every time that I walk past it, which is kind of what I want out of an instrument. You know, I've got several basses, and I'm very, very much blessed to have as many instruments as I have. I certainly don't need it, and I certainly have gear that's better than my ability. But when you walk past an instrument, or you have the ability to pick up several different instruments, you get different inspiration, and you get different creativity that's sparked out of those different things. It's just like getting a new pedal or anything else. This thing is a brand new bass to me, it feels like. But it's so familiar because the action, the neck, everything is, well, it's the first bass I ever played when I was 14 years old. So I've learned a lot of songs on this instrument. Learned a lot of different good and bad techniques. Some bad techniques I still haven't gotten past. But man, this thing is it's amazing. For all the flaws from my paint work and everything else, I mean, this thing's always going to be a special instrument to me. So I'm real grateful to have it. I'm grateful to have it in this condition. Like I said, this is one of those things that once you do it, I highly encourage anybody who wants to do something like this to just go ahead and do it. I mean, chances are you're going to make it better than it was before. And if you don't, it's something that you learn from and you keep repeating it until you get it right. At the end of the day, it's not a race. If it's an instrument that you're going to keep forever and you want to make it your own, then just take a chance and do it. Like I said, or buy an instrument that's just on its last leg, like I did with this jazz bass. So this thing was absolute garbage when I found it, and this is my number one 4-string. Well, at least it was until I finished this. Now I can't decide which one I like better in the 4 strings. But this thing was an absolute junk heap when I first picked it up. Hated the finish. It was all scratched to heck. There still is a crack in the tuner, the E string tuner, and it's just one of those things that now it's an awesome instrument, and I love playing it. And it's, like I said, until I finished this one, this has been my number one 4-string bass, and probably still is. I still like the jazz tone a little bit better than the precision bass tone. Sorry, P-Bass fans, but I think they each have their place. They're definitely different tonal tools for different things. So anyway, speaking of different tonal tools, you can definitely get a lot of different sounds out of this instrument. Like I said, this is what I consider to be my sweet spot. It's set up with the P pickup all the way up. Then I've got the jazz pickup and the tone pot rolled back about 10 to 15%. And it sounds a little something like this. So to me, it sounds great to my ear. I've got a little bit of overdrive courtesy of Dark Glass Microtube's B7K. I've got a little bit of EQ going on, a little bit of mid scoop, pretty standard stuff for a bass player. But if I roll this jazz pickup all the way back, roll the tone pot all the way up, now I've got a more traditional 70s style bass tone, like Well, anyway, I think you get the idea. I love this bass. It sounds great. I can sit here and play it for hours and not get sick of it. Before I wrap this up, I've got to give a big shout out to Ben Lindsay over at Madison's Music and Gracie's Vintage Finishes for helping me out, just giving me direction and advice and being patient with me and helping me through the painting process and using his nitrocellulose rattle can products. I love his paint. Granted, I've not had the best results, but that's on me. And this is not an easy finish, and probably not the first type of finish that you should ever try to use on restoring a guitar. But there's just something about it. I don't know what it is. There's just something about nitrocellulose that inherently it has a certain mojo about it. Also, I want to give a big thanks and a shout out to Ricky over at 920D Customs for reaching out to me and offering to send me this pre-wired kit for the tone pots. It sounds killer. I mean, honestly, it's about half the price of what I spent on the Emerson pre-wired kit that's in my jazz bass. And I kind of like the roll off a little bit. It's a little bit more subtle. There's not that harsh break in the tone pot that there is with this. And I'm not sure if that's due to the treble bleed circuits that is in that particular kit that's not in here, but nonetheless, this kit is awesome and I would highly recommend them. And I'm not getting paid to say that. It's just, it's really just a good value. So definitely check out 920D Customs for all your tone pots and wiring kit needs. And then of course, reach out to Ben Lindsay over at Madison's Music if you're interested in some nitrocellulose finish. If you're looking for the original paint codes for Fender products, Gibson products, their paint colors, their vintage paint colors, Ben's got them. And that's what he makes, that's what he has produced. Now he doesn't have the just tins of the lacquer that you can run through a spray gun. It's just the rattle cans. But you can see if you don't screw it up like I did, you're gonna get a great result. And even though I messed this up and have caused some of these small cracks, I still love the finish on it. And again, this is as bad as it's gonna get. You know, this is almost 3 years into it. Yes, it just looks like a worn bass. And quite honestly, I'm fine with it. I may refinish this one at some point. I'm gonna wait and see what happens with this one. Right now, I don't feel the need that I need to rush out and just take this whole thing apart and strip it and start over. I don't feel that need. Am I bummed? Yes. But quite honestly, I knew within a month of me playing this thing and taking it out of the house on a gig or playing it at church, it's going to happen. I'm gonna put a ding in it. There's gonna be a temperature change and the nitro is going to crack. I just didn't expect it to happen within 2 weeks of finishing it. So that's on me. It's 100% on me. But anyway, thank you so much for your patience with me getting this demo ready. I wanted to do a bunch of different things that I just didn't. Like I wanted to play drums and guitar to this track that I wrote, which was really the first set of riffs I wrote after restoring this bass, but I could just never get it right. And obviously it's hard to count what I was playing. I should have written it either on drums or guitar first with chords rather than those walking licks. But anyway, that's some more learning that I need to do about songwriting and especially when layering different instruments in there. I'm just a bass player. That's what I want to do. I want to play bass. I like drums, I like guitar, but this is what I want to play. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this episode of The Basement. We'll see you in the next one, where I'm going to solve for what caused the chip on this headstock by getting the guitars off the wall. I'm going to make a floor stand that's going to hold 12 guitars. Do I have 12 guitars? Absolutely not. Not yet. This project is going to be a means to an end. It's going to get the guitars off the wall, which will help prevent things like I had happen with this paint chip that happened on the headstock, but also it's going to clear the way for acoustic panels because I want to treat this room so I can start writing and recording more music and have it sound better when I go to mix, and then kind of cut down a little bit on the echo and the rattle that goes on in this room. So I've been sitting on this wonderful Acoustone fabric from Newcastle Fabrics for months and months now, waiting for me to get this project done so I can get started on that. Now I'm gonna have another interrupting project with that guitar stand. But I'm gonna get that sucker done, then we're gonna start building acoustic panels, and I'll probably do a couple other bass related videos. I'm even thinking of doing some covers. I had so much fun just playing a couple excerpts, some songs in this particular playthrough. So yeah, I'm not making money on YouTube anyway, so what do I care if I don't get paid for covers? I'm not getting paid anyway. I do this because I love it, and that's why I continue to do it. So thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate you following along this build. It's taken a long time, and I know it's required not only patience for me, but anybody who's been watching this build, waiting for this thing to get done and finally hear what it sounds like. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the series. I'm not done rescuing basses like this, so if you've got an old crappy bass that you want to have rescued, do it. Just do it. I'm always going to be cruising the want ads and Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace for hidden gems like this, because this was definitely a turd when I first got it, and now it's, like I said, it's my #1 bass. So I'm keeping my eyes peeled for a Jaguar. I think that's probably the next thing that I want to restore. I'm looking for a Japanese one because I like the jazz bass configuration with the pickups. But I'll take what I can find. The more messed up, the better, because then I get to have more fun and be more creative in refinishing and restoring that instrument. So I love the concept of restorations and repurposing things like pallet wood. That's why I made my workbench out of pallet wood. That's why I'm going to make this guitar rack out of pallet wood. I like the idea of reclaiming and restoring things that were otherwise just not useful. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.